International Film Music Critics Association, I'd like to present the 2015 IFMCA Award for Best Original Score for a Comedy Film to Douglas Pipes for Krampus. Congratulations.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. I'm honored and humbled very much.
Congratulations again on the
Thank
award.
You so much. So happy.
Just to introduce yourself to people, can you talk a little bit about your background and how you got interested in film music and how you got involved in writing for film?
Yeah. So when I was younger, I played keyboards in a group, and one night I was in a band and someone that was making a film approached me to score the film, and I took that job on and I really, really enjoyed it. And from that film, I ended up doing a couple of these, low-budget independent films. I liked it so much, but I wasn't crazy about the scores.
Right.
So I quit scoring. I stopped taking the work and went to school, back to university to study orchestration and composition and orchestration. And not film scoring, but classical. Music composition, and did that. And then while I was doing that, started scoring short films and such again. And that's where I met Gil Kennan,
right,
doing his student films.
And that, of course, led to Monster House.
He did the most incredible thing by telling the producers that he wanted me to be his composer, having only done a couple independent films that no one would have ever seen. I think you can buy one of them at a truck stop.
But that took some guts to convince the studio to get...
It did, and even everyone at Sony, they were the Image Movers people, Robert Zemeckis and Steve Starkey in particular, and Jack Rapke, and Leah Volkis at Sony. They were all helpful in pushing the process through, but I did have to mock up the entire film before they signed off on it. So I actually scored the whole film, and then they did a preview screening and went ahead and said, okay, yeah, this works.
Right. I'm always curious, as your three most mainstream films today have been Monster House and then Trick or Treat and now Krampus. Does horror movie music, is that in your blood almost? Is that a genre you gravitate towards, or not really?
It's funny because in a lot of ways, Trick or Treat has the most horror to it, but they all have so many other elements to them.
Right.
They all have tons of drama and comedy, and straight ahead drama, straight ahead comedy, horror, and all that. What I like about the horror stuff is that I do like experimenting with sound and extended techniques and doing things like that, but I don't think of myself as a horror composer.
It's just
I'm just a composer.
Coincidence that they were your biggest three.
Yeah.
So obviously last year's big film for you was Krampus. You've worked with Michael Doherty before. He was the director on Trick or Treat.
Yeah.
Were you on board pretty early in the process? Was it always a given that you were going to be scoring this movie?
Nothing is a given.
Well, of course.
But yeah, he had sent me the script and told me about it early in the writing phase of it, and we had discussed. Typically, what happens is if he called me, I can remember exactly where I was. He told me about it. I get excited. He sends me a script. I start writing stuff before there's anything to ever show him. I just start jumping in based on our conversations. So I can kind of just get the fire going.
Right.
And then it was a while before it got put into production, but he was communicating with me the whole way. And before they went off to shoot it, I met with them and we got the updated script and looked at the concept art and such. And then all through that time, I work on demos and just keep kicking around ideas. And a fair amount of those ideas have nothing to do with anything, because once the movie comes out and pacing and color and all that stuff is different. But I do like to just start weeding out the possibilities.
Right. I think one of the most interesting things about the score is that, how you bring in the Christmas carols and, the little subtle allusions to things in the past. Craig, you wanted to mention about Carol of the Bells.
Yeah, one of the things that fascinated me about your approach was you had the Krampus character who is the embodiment of darkness,
Right.
okay, and you provide a thematic identity for him. But to really appreciate darkness, I think you have to juxtapose it with light. And what you did, and to interpolate the Carol of the Bells to be the light that counters him. And I really thought it worked very well in the film, and I'd like you to discuss how you conceptualized that and made it work in the film.
Yeah, so early on, Michael and I talked about using Christmas themes as similar to what we did in Trick or Treat, was to have a foundation. And in this case, the Christmas themes are to keep the Christmas spirit throughout the movie. And we both knew Carol of the Bells was something that lent itself very well to where we were going on this movie. And I think the fact that the use of bells and the upper register that you hear in Carol of the Bells, and so when I first came at the Krampus theme, it's sort of in my head, it's how we hear it as basically as Beth is walking down the snow the first time she sees him. It's just that very low, heavy representation of the theme. So then, and I wanted something that would work, that they could interlock. That they could kind of move in and out of each other and have, a very nice way to lock together. So it was a sort of an experimentation of finding something that could, on the Krampus side, work all by itself, but also when they both had to come together, that they could really fit together well.
I thought it was interesting as well that you chose to use lots of bells and lots of metallic percussion, because the Krampus legend has him walking around covered in chains and carrying bells around with him. That's a really interesting way to, illustrate the actual legend of him.
Right, and this, even on the scoring stage, the percussion players had chains, and there are chains in the score, and the percussion players were playing with chains,
right,
and all kinds of metallic objects and bells, and that, again, that also helps bring out that just bells and chimes help keep this Christmassy sound happening, even while there's this dark undertone that's just coming at you.
Right. And then, of course, you came up with new lyrics for the Carol of the Bells for the end credits. Is that you who wrote those, or?
Yeah.
That was clever.
Yeah, that was really fun. To give it, the Krampus story.
Yeah. Were you aware of the Krampus story prior to the movie?
No. When Michael first called me, that's why I remember that phone call so much. He explained the legend to me over the telephone, and then I came back and did some research on it, but I had not heard of the legend before.
Right.
Most Americans are not really familiar
that's right.
with the Krampus story at all.
No, and what's funny is I've been to Austria a couple times, but not ever in Christmas time, so I've not been in a position to see it. Now I certainly want to go back during Christmas.
Make sure you get out of Austria like that.
Yes.
The first time I heard about it was actually the American version of The Office. Dwight's character dresses up as Krampus during one of the episodes, and I was like, oh, what is this? And you look back, and of course it's this strange folklore of something he dug up, so...
Right.
Yeah. Michael started this a couple years ago, so it's been on my radar for now a couple years, but in this past year, it seems like even just in American culture, it's really blown up all over the place.
I'm sure the movie helped.
Yeah, I think so. I hope so.
I want to talk a little bit about the tone of the film. I think capturing the correct tone, because it has kind of, you went for best comedy, but it has horror elements and holiday elements. So when you first sat down to discuss the tone of the score, was nailing the tone a challenge to make sure the music wasn't leaning in too strong of a direction?
Yeah, it was actually something that Michael and I discussed this on a daily basis. We're pitching it one way and keep shifting it back and finding its balance. And, in this case, it's sort of, we knew all along that the movie had to have heart, it had to have Christmas, but it also had to be fun. It wasn't going to be some movie where it was a big, oppressive horror film, just horror. We both, and I think everyone working on the film, liked the idea of the movies that we grew up with, Gremlins and such, where you might be scared, but you have a smile on your face.
Right, yeah.
It's a roller coaster. You're having a great time. You're
That's
eating
very
your
much what it
popcorn.
reminded me of,
Yeah.
with Gremlins.
Yeah. So that the tone, the goal on the tone was to make it. Where do we find the place to let everyone know we're supposed to be having a good time here?
Right. Good.
Okay, well, thank you very much for
Oh
your
my
time.
gosh!
And
Thank you guys so much.
congratulations again. And
Thank you to everyone in the IFMCA, and I'm always concerned I'm going to say that backwards or yeah. But I'm so grateful and so humbled by the award. Thank you so much.